chain, pawn everything that was in my name. Oh, Lord, and me did not shake sugary. Everything I got is done and pawned. Everything I got is done and pawned. On my chair, on my bed, ain't got nowhere to lay my head. Oh, Lord, and me did not shake sugary. Everything I got is done and pawned. Everything I got is done and pawned. Pawn my tobacco, pawn my pipe, pawn everything that was in my sight. Oh, Lord, and me did not shake sugary. Everything I got is done and pawned. Everything I got is done and pawned. Got a little secret, ain't gonna tell. I'm gonna heaven in a brown pea shell. Oh, Lord, and me did not shake sugary. Everything I got is done and pawned. Everything I got is done and pawned. Got a little secret, ain't gonna tell. I'm gonna heaven and I ain't gone. Oh, Lord, and me did not shake sugary. Everything I got is done and pawned. Everything I got is done and pawned. Everything I got is done and pawned. Charmer, he was a handsome man, but when he'd move it, Lord, the ladies lose it. Daddy was a dancing man. When he was dancing, Daddy swept the floor. They call it sifting sand. So light and graceful, not a step was wasteful. Daddy was a dancing man. Come a-courtin', they try to take my hand. They buck and wing, but it doesn't mean a thing, 'cause Daddy was the dancing man. So tall and slender, Daddy was a charmer. He was a handsome man. But when he'd move it, Lord, those ladies lose it. Daddy was a dancing man.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome into the Old Time Banjo Festival online edition. And we're going to bring in Cathy Fink here as we get ready to get started here with the workshop with Rhiannon Giddens. I'm Brad Kolodner, and really excited about round two of this whole production. We had a great time last night with the concert, and Rhiannon had a wonderful set, and we're looking forward to learning from her. Cathy, can you hear me out there?
I can hear you. You sound
Lo-
great, as
Love,
always.
lovely. Thank you. Okay, so uh, welcome everybody into this workshop. We'll just go over some of the general guidelines. It's great to see so many folks tuning in from all over the world. It's
It's
kind of
amazing.
amazing what technology can do despite the pandemic, and being able to just stay connected right now. It feels so important. And how you doing, Cathy? You recovered from the show last night?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It was a great show. I loved hearing everybody. Looking forward to tonight's show and like 2 days of awesome workshops where, because I have the same job as you as co-host, I get to sit in on all of the workshops and try and soak it all in and become a better banjo player.
Oh yeah, I've got my banjo here ready to steal some of Rhiannon's licks. Rhiannon, can you hear us out there? Is everything working?
It seems to be working. If you can hear
Okay,
me and you
so
can see me, I think we're good.
now you are in Ireland right now.
I
Is that
am.
right? Very nice. Well, your set last night was wonderful, and the pre-recorded version was very understandable, considering that it would have been 2:30 in the morning by showtime.
Yeah, I
Uh,
just don't. I'm no good. I'm no good that late.
Yeah, I don't know who is. Let's see here. For those of you who joined us in round one of this festival, you probably have heard this spiel before. But basically, Cathy and I will be serving as Rhiannon's assistants during the workshop and passing along any questions you may have. So the chat function is where you can pass along any questions, and then we will. Maybe we'll be able to answer them just in the chat if they're a simple question, but we may interrupt the meeting a couple times and ask the question to Rhiannon. But with that said, I appreciate everybody saying where they're tuning in from, but at this point, it would be nice to just keep the chat to questions only. And we will leave time at the very end for just a more general Q&A, like a 10 to 15 minute question and answer that doesn't necessarily have to be super specific to the exact material that we're working on, if you'd like. I think that's about it for now. Anything else, Cathy, that I'm leaving out? Oh, I forgot. We do have a backup link on YouTube, so if you do get kicked out of the meeting for some reason, then you should have an email in your with your link to YouTube for the backup. So just that's also where the workshop will be archived. And Cathy, maybe you can say a word about how we're doing the archive and
Yeah, so the
that.
archive is going to be on a private YouTube link, and you will get an email on Monday with exactly where the links for whatever workshops you've signed up for are. And please read the whole email. We've gotten lots of people writing saying, I don't have my links, I don't have my links. And then we write back and say it was in this email and copy the email. And they go, oh, yeah, I got that. I forgot to read it. So just do us a favor and read all of that. We're managing about 300 people in these workshops. And so it's a lot of emails. And the good news is, hey, we're managing about 300 people in these
Yeah.
workshops. Welcome to Banjo World here, everybody.
Woo! Yeah.
So just last thing. We're starting in the key of G. If anybody missed that notice here, open G tuning. And, if you can refrain from personal chat stuff and just leave it to the questions. It makes it a lot more efficient, gives us more time with Rhiannon and throughout the weekend with the other guests. So without any further ado, got any further ado, Brad?
I think the ado is done. I
The
don't know.
ado is
that
done. Let's
is
turn
that
it
a
over
thing?
to Rhiannon.
All right, take it away. Oh, you are. Oh, right. I make sure that nobody's allowed to unmute themselves, but I should not do that for Rhiannon. Hold on one second.
Don't worry, folks. We're only one button away from perfection.
Here we go. Oh, that was so smooth right up until that point.
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself so I could tune because nobody
Yes,
needs to
good
hear
call.
that. Although you're going to hear more of it. Hi everyone. Wow, I was scrolling through everybody's photos. It's kind of overwhelming to think that you're all out there, but I'm glad that you are, and thanks to Brad and Cathy for this. It's quite amazing. I am not a I'm not a tune note by note teacher. This is why I don't do a ton of banjo workshops, because that's just not the way I learned, and it's just, it doesn't really fit too much what I do. But I think there is stuff to be gained from it. There's a lot to be gained from it. It's just I'm not very good at it, so I will pull out my best tricks for this and see what we can do. So what I'm going to do is just kind of walk you through how I came to the banjo with some tunes, and there's some things that I do that I think are kind of unusual. I think given how I learned the banjo and how I came to it. So I'm just going to start with a tune that I learned from Joe Thompson. And it has kind of this thing that I do with the fifth string, and I thought we could start there and then move on to what I've learned from the minstrel tunes and maybe tackle one of those. I'm not so I'm kind of just gonna throw some stuff out there, and then if you have questions or things aren't making sense or anything, you can just tell me. So that should be G. I've been in C for so long, it sounds weird. A truncated version of that song. Is the sound okay? Does that sound all right?
It's still clipping a tiny bit. If you could just turn it down a hair.
Okay,
Yeah.
but just a tiny bit. Okay,
Just a
cool.
little bit, yeah.
I'll move it. It's a pretty sensitive mic. So what that kind of represents a lot of what I do on the banjo. I pretty much do as much as I can with very little. I do, when I used to play with jams, or especially when I played with Joe Thompson, which is how I learned how to play the banjo, in terms of how I play it now, I learned a lot of really great things from people like Cathy, I took a couple lessons from Adam Hurt, but in terms of my rhythm, I really got, I feel like what makes my style from playing with Joe. And so in this, there's a lot of kind of something that I do that I don't necessarily see a lot of, which is... So if you hear what I'm talking about, it's instead of... which is kind of the bum ditty, which is that thing, but what I'm doing... So to hear the difference, it's like I basically like to hang out on the 5th string. So if I slow it down... And I'm not actually playing a lot of notes. You know, I'm just what I tend to do with my particular style is I find the basic notes, and it's all about the rhythm from there. You know, I'm not finding each note in the song, so I'm going. Right? So what we can do is, if this is not I don't know what levels everybody's at. I don't know where you guys are. So what we can do, because I think there's a lot to be learned even if you already know the tune. And if it's a very simple tune for you, then what we're doing is looking at the sort of rhythmic differences that you can do within a very simple tune. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that. So even if you've got lots of facility here, let's see if we can break it down to the basic of the tune, and then kind of talk about you know, what that does, because then when it's sped up, and it gives you that kind of that up feeling, which is what I really feel like I got from Joe. This focus on there's the down and then the up response to that. I don't know if that's is that from being a black string band player? I don't know, but it is something that I feel like I got from playing with him all these years. If you don't know who I'm talking about, Joe Thompson was an 86-year-old African-American fiddler from Mebane, North Carolina, that I got to learn his family's music. So that's the first part of the tune. So it's lights in the valley. If you can see my fingers. So it's on the bottom string. Lights in the valley. Lights in the valley. And then don't shine the sun. Don't shine the sun. So we put those together and we have lights in the valley. Don't shine the sun. Right? So and then why don't we just do the whole first part of the tune, because then we can kind of figure out the rhythm that goes along with that. So lights in the valley, outshine the sun. And I recommend that you sing along, because it's how I think of, even if it's not something that you do in general, it's a different way of looking at it. So it's a good way to practice taking in the melody, even if it's not something you want to sing with, even if you're not a singer, if you don't want to be a singer, singing along with the notes that you're playing actually is a great way to root that in your body, because my whole thing is it doesn't matter what notes you miss as long as you're in the phrase and you're on it and you're there for the next thing, line that starts. And if you're kind of singing it internally, I think that really helps. So anyway. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. And then you go to what chord is that? Anybody know? It's this chord here. If you can see. Yeah, I don't know what key that is.
It's a C chord.
Thank you. I was hoping maybe you'd pipe in. So you go to your C chord. Right, so lights in. So if you're going lights in the valley, outshine the sun. And then I tend to just go lights in the valley, outshine the sun. I just pick bass notes, so I just use that chord. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. And then you take the chord off. So Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Right? So, lights in the valley, outshine the sun. And then you just do the first part again. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Way beyond. And then go to your D chord, the blue. Right? That one I remember. And that's the tune. So I think with that basic tune, we could actually do a lot with it in terms of how to dress it up from a rhythmic standpoint. So gonna go over the whole tune, gonna slow it down, and like I said, even if this is something that's really simple for you, just kind of fall into the notes and just be there and be simple for a minute. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Way beyond the blue. Now I want you to go ahead and chord, because then when we start actually adding the stuff to it, then that chord will come out. So let's do it now, just putting a regular bum ditty in there, because then we can talk about how we can change that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lights in. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Way beyond the blue. Let's do it again. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Way beyond the blue. Is this making sense? It's really hard because I can't see you, or hear you. I'm just looking here. Okay. Is the mic still clipping, or is it okay?
Everything's good. Does anybody have any questions?
Before we start messing with stuff? Okay. And if you do, that's okay. Feel free to pop them in there. So I already couldn't actually decouple my hands from what I always do. All the time, I could do it some of the time. So you have... So let's talk about that. So instead of going, woo, the window just opened. Hello. I was wondering why it was a bit loud. There's a storm here coming in, so hopefully the internet will hold up. This is called Lights in the Valley. What do you do in the bum ditty when you get to those first offbeats in the melody? That, I believe, is what we're going to address. So we're going from a regular, and I've never really taught this, so we're gonna discover this together. You're gonna have to tell me if it's effective or not. So I'm tapping my foot, so it's boom, tick it down, 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 up, down, 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 down. Okay, so we have. So basically we have a double thumb on the 5th string. That's what's happening. So I think the way to practice that is you have... Do you see what I'm doing? It's like... I'm leaving my hand up, so the basic claw hammer stroke, as I learned from Cathy Fink many years ago. I got to take a week-long class with her, and she really got me so clear about how the hand is one thing. There's none of this going on, right? You probably already know that, but I don't think it can be said enough, because it's usually the one problem that I see when I have taught classes is the idea that these fingers float. So with this technique, it has to be one motion. So your hand, I forget the other fingers exist unless I use them as a downstroke. So let me pop that down a little bit just to make sure. There we go. So you can see. So when I'm doing the regular, it's really this kind of open close thing. So when I'm doing, I go down and then I just kind of leave the hand up. It's like there's a pause up there, and so when it sounds a bit kind of funny when you're slow. This real kind of this energy to it, it gives this something, because we played a lot of really fast. We played for like cloggers and stuff, which gets kind of difficult with clawhammer sometimes, but that really kind of it kind of like it's like this. It's a different kind of chug, It's an upbeat chug. So anyway, so the idea of can you explain what the thumb versus the other fingers are doing? Yeah. So the thumb. So let's go to the basic bum ditty here. So you have sorry. Now what you're going to do is add another thumb. Bum, leave it up. Bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, does that make sense? Is that clear? So that kind of idea of maybe trying to incorporate that, it's what I have found is that there's actually a lot of scope for different rhythmic opportunities with the fifth string that really maybe we don't always take advantage of in modern clawhammer. So let's because like I'm not melodically particularly advanced, but I'm hitting the thumb is hitting the fifth string is the thumb's only hitting the fifth string right now. I'm just hitting that fifth string twice. And what I'm doing it's still my hand is leading the motion. I'm not going, you know what I mean? I'm not stopping it and letting the finger and the thumb do the work. So let's just try that a couple times. That. Yeah, finger skipping one stroke. That's a good way of looking at it too. So you have so bum ba ba. bum. Well, no, it's still adding. It's adding a double. It's adding an extra thumb. Sing if it helps. I find that also just being more, if you can be fluid in, this is kind of a focus on the right hand workshop, and this is kind of how I play banjo, is I focus on the right hand. The left hand matters, but not as much to me. I focus more on what my right hand's doing, and usually that doesn't miss a beat. Now the left hand might be all over the place, but the right hand is staying in it. And that's just, when I was playing banjo, I learned how to actually play, and I started playing some songs with lots of different notes, well, not a lot of different notes, but I started, I could play a tune, like perform a tune, and kind of keep it going from the beginning to the end. But I feel like my banjo playing really got into where it became my style is when I started playing with Joe, and I started playing for dances. So I started playing for square dances, dancers like flat-footers, or even just playing with Joe for hours at a time, playing the same tune over and over again. And so you start thinking about what's the most efficient use of your hand and what's the most efficient use of the rhythm. So this is kind of what has informed my banjo playing. So if we go, lights in the valley, how shine the sun. Lights in the valley, how shine the sun. So we can do the whole thing without actually doing notes. So lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Lights in the valley, outshine the sun. Way beyond. So that might be a good exercise, actually. It's just don't even worry about the left hand, and just, if you get the basic chords in, then that's an accompaniment, And since this is a singing song, you don't really need all the notes. So let's slow it. Let's keep it slow there, and let's do the whole tune a couple of times with just playing the chords, and hitting what the ideally is you want the, but even if it's, don't worry about it. If it's the whole thing, the whole point is to get the double fifth string. You know what I mean? So let's try. If we just slow it down. So lights in 1, 2, 3, 4. Lights in the valley. How does that feel? Is that clear? Am I explaining it okay? Is it helpful? Is it clear as mud? Okay, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, just keep me informed. Because like I said, I'm trying to break this down in a way that makes sense. But yeah, and that's the thing. You take what you take right at the moment, and then you can do what all of us do, which is to sit and play that thing over and over again, which I've done many times. So that's one thing that I've learned. Oh yeah, it's D7. Thank you. It's just the 2-finger chord that I know. So, so there's that whole thing, which is, I think you can do lots of things with that double thumb. I kind of come in and out of it. I don't even notice I'm doing it half the time. So if I'm playing, you know, or I was playing this last night. You know, it's like wherever there's a moment, that's where it goes, you know, for me. And it is a very integral part of my banjo playing. Now, as I have been going, kind of working backwards, so I started off as learning modern clawhammer style. And I played a daring good time banjo. It was fabulous. This is obviously not that. This is a turn of the century banjo. It's got frets, but it also has nylon or Nile gut strings. Is the rhythm like bump diddy diddy rather than bump diddy? Oh, wait a minute. No, I don't think, I don't. Because the whole point is that it's like bum diddy diddy bum diddy diddy. It's not. It's a lift, you know. So yeah, however it makes sense to do it in your mind, but you know, yeah, figuring out a mnemonic for that a rhythmic piece is really helpful if it's something that you want to incorporate, you know, into your playing. So so I kind of went backwards. I learned modern clawhammer style, and then I went sort of to, I need to plug in my freaking computer because I'm in Egypt. Hold on. I have a thing. Because I was going to use another computer, but it's kind of broken, so I'm using this. So I went from Appalachia and Piedmont and all, you know, the black string band and white string band and just the southern string band tradition to Africa. I went to the Gambia, and I studied the accounting. Now this is a banjo ancestor. It is one that hold on, sorry. Where I've got all my instruments down here. Oh, there we go. It's already in there. Fantastic. And I studied a banjo ancestor called the accounting, and I realized that the right hand was very, very similar. It was just 2 long strings and 1 short string. I don't have mine with me. It's in Nashville. So I can't show you. But I realized that this is actually a very, really, really old form of playing, and my right hand, I didn't have to do much at all to learn the accounting, but their left hand was of course completely different because the music note system is different. The rhythms were, there was definitely stuff that's very similar to the bum ditty. So I went all the way back there and kind of realized there's this long, you know, thing. But what I realized is that between the accounting and this banjo is an intermediary step of how clawhammer got to be where it is now, and it's the minstrel style. So that's where this banjo comes into play. And it, you know, any workshop I'm going to teach, you know, is going to be history in it. That's just so hopefully you knew that coming in. So this is my banjo that I play most of the time, and it is a replica of banjo of 1858 style banjo. So this is straight up right in the middle of the minstrel style. Minstrel, of course, called because they were the people playing these banjos are mostly in doing blackface minstrelsy. Although these banjos were also played in a folk context as well, because they were instruments, and so they were just played how they were played. But what I realized is that the intermediary between, you know, the traditional way of playing, like the accounting or instruments like that, and where we ended up in, we'll say, like modern old-time clawhammer technique is the stroke style. And this is the codified style of banjo playing that was that came from the first generation of white banjo players kind of codified the style. And this became like the first commercial style of banjo. And then there was a book by a guy named Briggs in 1855. Now this is a transcription of that. This has been kind of my Bible for some years now. I've been working on these tunes for quite a while. And they are what Joseph I can't pronounce his last name anyway. I feel like I know him, but anyway, I can't pronounce his last name. But what he did was that he took these tunes and he put them in tab, because I can't read music for the banjo. I can't hardly read music anyway. And so he kind of gave these tunes a whole different life. So I've been learning these tunes, and what I find is that there's actually quite a lot in here. There's quite a lot of techniques that got left out of the banjo as it became, as it traveled. It went to the mountains. It went everywhere. Everywhere black people were, the banjo went, and then eventually it was being also spread by white folks as well. But there were lots of different ways of playing minstrel tunes that we don't use those techniques anymore. And a lot of that involves the fifth string. And I'm kind of in the midst of researching, like, it's really hard to know how much of this came from actual African-American players, how much of it was composed, how much of it is, mixtures. And, ultimately, I don't really care. I do feel that there's a lot of techniques in here that are really connected to an African-American aesthetic or an African aesthetic. So that's kind of how I'm feeling it. So what I thought is that we could also look at some of these and how they can be translated to this, right? So I'm going to play you, and I thought we could learn a tune. Is that cool? Is that cool with everybody? We are, okay, yeah, we're doing good for time. So this is just one to listen to, because obviously, we're all in G, and I'm going to get back to G. But, I'm in C major, like we're in G major on the banjo, and I'm gonna go to minstrel tuning, which is you take the low string and you go down a whole step. So that means you can actually play in two different keys, or, right? And the fifth string works differently in each key. So it's kind of handy. It's kind of a handy tuning, but that's how all these tunes were played. So I'm just going to show you, we won't learn all of them. I'm actually going to pick one tune to teach you guys from this book, because I think it's one that's going to really kind of open up, has the most chance to kind of open up your hand and the ideas of clawhammer playing. But I'm going to show you a couple of different things in case you're interested and you want to kind of dig into this yourselves, because I think we could really be introducing some of these techniques back into modern clawhammer, and maybe some of them already have. I just, I don't know. I haven't seen it a lot, but I'm sure the masters are doing some of these things anyway. But for those of us who don't play that good, so this is okay. So this is one that has a very interesting technique, which we'll talk about in a second. Yeah, this is C, E, G, right? And then this is F, right? Yeah. No. They all start very similar. So what that does, is this not in C? Sorry, I don't know what key this is. It should be in C. But what that does, if you notice, there's a couple of different things in that tune. So we have the bum, bum, bum. So instead of, so it specifies that you use your thumb instead of. So the difference between going is. So we're not going to learn that, but I just wanted to show you that because the emphasis on the thumb doing different things, I think, is what opens up some of the polyrhythmic flavors of these tunes. So instead of, right? You hear the difference? For me, it's huge. It's like the use of that thumb is everything. And then the more I've gotten into it, the more I realize that I can actually even stress it even more in a way that I can't if it's this way. You know, so. Right? And then the other thing in this tune is the idea of brushing one finger from one string to the next. So. Going right, so these are there's a lot of right hand stuff that I think is really interesting and can be used in the regular banjo. Now that's just a couple of examples to just show you what that thumb stuff can really do. I would love to teach a tune which I'll play first on the minstrel banjo, and then I'll pick up my G banjo and we can do that. The name of the tune, it's a good question. A lot of these are like Briggs tune, Briggs jig, Briggs reel. I mean, I think they were teaching tunes, but they were tunes that existed already, or he adapted them, or he changed them a little bit. Some of them have names. They were well-known songs. Some of them are just Briggs breakdown. I think this one was called bum 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 bum. No, I have to find it. I'll find it. But so the one I wanted to teach is actually in three, or six or whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's in 6/8 or however you want to look at it. And it so yes, we're gonna learn something in 3 on the banjo, but I think it's really well worth kind of breaking it down and checking it out. When I'm playing that tune, it really the thumb can really dig into that 5th string, and other places it's double thumbing. Now, if you're not a big double thumber, or if you're not a big into the thumb going down, that's okay. We can take some pieces out of this tune and practice them, and these are things that you can then kind of pull into. Oh, stop! Whoever's talking to me, sorry. I'll turn that off when we have a break. So I just want to show it to you on this banjo, and we can kind of extract a couple of techniques from it. If you have the book, it's called Hard Times. It's on page 35. So. But I wouldn't. Don't worry about it if you happen to have it. I really just want to pick it apart and take some pieces to look at it from a technique point of view. So I'm going to take this low string down. Sounds super cool on the modern banjo. And I know that there's been, when I first started off in old time music, people said, oh, you don't play jigs on the banjo. Well, that's really not true. Jigs, it was like anything and everything. People just played tunes, and they tended to be kind of 2/4 or 4/4 tunes for various reasons. Because of dance, it kind of tended to be how the music kind of got sort of siphoned into that. But a lot of the old timers could play lots of quadrilles, all these kind of things that were not what we kind of think of as old time music. So I just think it's important to kind of address that. I dropped this here. I dropped the low tune down a step. So now it's G. Oh gosh. I'm so bad at this. C, D, G, A, B, D. So G, B, D. And instead of this being a D, it's actually a C. Right? I hope I'm correct. Yes. So there are things, I think there's a lot of things we can learn. So I'd love to break it down a little bit. I don't want to necessarily learn it note by note like a tune, but I'd love to break it down. This is right here is a really cool a really cool vibe, and it also kind of breaks you out of the boom chicka boom chicka boom chicka boom, because I think being able to kind of like roll some other vibes in there will just strengthen your playing, even if you don't ever want to play a jig in your life. Being able to loosen up your right hand a little bit, I think is nothing. I mean, these tunes, I find when I play now my straight up old time tunes, they're stronger because I've been really digging into slowing things down and learning different kinds of rhythmic elements and doing, strengthening my thumb and where it goes on the long strings rather than just the short string. And I've been able to pull different rhythmic things out, even of a very simple tune, because that's the point, right? Is that if you aren't a fancy player, or if it's a tune that you've never known, and I'm not saying things like fancy players like it's a bad thing. Like, I wish I could do all that stuff, but I can't. So I focus on the rhythm, because that's kind of my thing. I've picked a thing, and that's, I go with it. So you can actually do things with that, taking a very simple tune and really putting some rhythmic complexities in it. So the first motive is going to be with the chord down. So it's just a dum ba dum ba dim bum ba dum ba dim. So what you're going is you're going dum da. So you go dun da dum dum da dum ba dum bum ba dum ba dum. So let's slow it down. So it goes bum ba dum ba dum. Can you see? So I'm hitting the second to bottom, or this. I'm hitting this string with my first finger, kind of like, and bouncing off of it a little bit. And when I come back down, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, because it also frees up your hand. So you have this kind of like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you notice that the does that make sense? And it's one of those that you kind of have to sit with a little bit, because it is so kind of, in one way it is right into, you know, what we do as banjo players, but in another way it is kind of, you know, you have to think in a slightly different way. So we have, so there's that kind of motive in there, which I think is like really worth kind of just sitting with a little bit. And yes, I can. So you can actually, you can do lots of different things with that. You know, so that's something to kind of take. And then in the second part of the tune, to kind of isolate that and work on that for a second. So what you're doing is you're going this finger, so you do a pull off, so you have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But the way that the thumb is going on the fifth string, even though it's on the one, it kind of feels like an off. So it creates these kind of pseudo off rhythms, it's a pseudo cross rhythm. It's not actually, everything is super straight, but the different emphases on where the thumb goes creates this idea that it's kind of polyrhythmic, which is where I think that, you know, that African American sort of that aspect of it really comes in, because as minstrel music progresses, you know, as you go from the 50s, like this is the very first one from the 50s, the 1850s, and then you have one out in the 60s, the 70s. As it continues to go, as the banjo starts to get frets, the music goes away from these kinds of rhythms and it goes more into a European context if you look at the music. So that's why I think these really early tunes, there's a lot to be learned from them. So that back to the, so you have the third finger, ba-dum-bum, 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 ba-dum-bum. And then when you speed that up, it's like, ba-dum-bum, ba-dum-bum, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, ba-dum-bum, 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 ba-dum-bum. Sing along with yourself. Ba-dum-bum, 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 ba-dum-bum. You know, so just, and the other thing about these tunes, which of course we all love about old time music, is the idea that it never stops. And that you can really kind of trance out and do like, find one rhythmic element and really trance out to it and really release your hand into it, if you know what I mean. So back to the double. You know, and so that's really like, that's 3 notes, but you're already kind of mixing up things and it sounds a lot more complicated than it is. You know, because you're just doing kind of the same thing over and over again. So I wanted to kind of take that out of, I think there's too many techniques in there for us all to sort of sit and try to learn today, but what I just wanted to pull those out because those are things that you can adapt to for playing, you know, to the bum ditty. It's just the idea of opening up, you know, just opening up your hand. So I'm going to play the tune really slowly from beginning to end in case it's something that you do want to work on. And I do highly recommend getting this, if you want to dig into this, you don't need a minstrel banjo, although I do love it. You don't need a minstrel banjo to play these tunes. I think they're really great because they were meant as teaching tools. These tunes were simplified to a point so that you could learn the minstrel style banjo, the stroke style, and I think it's very handy to then incorporate into the modern old time style. So let me play the whole thing. Ooh. Sorry, I'm so crap about being in tune. I've been playing with like frame drums a lot, so I've gotten really super lazy. So you hear when I speed it up, like that fifth string then starts to really, you can feel that off. And for me, that's really where, comparisons to some of the banjo ancestors come into play for me. So the tuning is what you would use for all of the tunes. Yeah, it'll tell you, if you read it, it'll tell you like this, there's a few where the tuning is different, but it tells you what it is. But it doesn't matter what the tonic is, as long as you have that fifth string down, and you can play in the two keys. It doesn't matter where it is, if it's in G or C or D. Most people who play minstrel banjos play it at a D. I just play the gumbo chaff tuning, which is an earlier tuning, which I probably is because the kind of things that you need to be able to have a higher tension of string, they hadn't figured out how to do or something. I don't know. The book is The Minstrel Banjo, Briggs Banjo Instructor, by Joseph Wiedlich. And there's two volumes of this, but I love a lot of these tunes. I wanted to play. We're gonna take a little break in a second, but I wanted to play one real quick just so that you can really feel like what I'm talking about. There's really a whole world out there of what you can do, especially when you have nylon strings. There's some of this it's harder to do with the metal strings, but you can still make it work. Oh, what is this? Comes from 1855, so I think that there's a lot of stuff to be mined in the period in between and leading up into the creation of the claw hammer technique, which, as you can see, a lot of these techniques didn't survive and there's various reasons. There's not a bad thing, but I think now that we have all these ability to, go back and fetch it, as it were, and kind of reincorporate, I think it's worth at least looking into. So let's take a little break. I'm just gonna get some water because we still have a good chunk of time to learn one more kind of tune. What I thought I would do is go back to Joe Thompson now that we've kind of taken a little walk with minstrel banjo. As that there's a tune of his that I'd love to teach that I've been playing for a long time, and it's got a lot of it's got some of that fifth string action in it, and it's just something I think might be helpful to learn. So, and if you have any specific questions, let me know. And I can try to address them as much as I can. And we can pull this baby out for a second, maybe now that I have it back from Uma. And now she's got her own gourd banjo, which is amazing. She sounds incredible on it, way better than I sound. So yeah, let's take 5 minutes. I'm just gonna get some water. Yeah, it's available on Amazon. Stay in G, or go back to G. Sorry. Go to regular G. So stay. You can get out of minstrel tuning and go back to regular G. Which is just. Also, I wanted to say, I'm gonna go get my water in just a minute, but I wanted to say, there's some really good resources out there if you want to know more about this period of banjo. I also just did a lecture demonstration for Carnegie Hall, which is still up. My partner and I did that, so we talk about the banjo and the tambourine actually, and how they met in the minstrel show. So if you want to know a little bit more historical context around that, you can go there, or there's like loads of really great books, which I can maybe put a list together or something. There's many people out there way more knowledgeable than I am. Let me get a glass of water and I'll look at your questions in just a second.
So while everybody is taking a break here just for a moment, we do want to just make one thing clear about the links. I know some folks have had trouble getting into the workshop. The links are found in an email that was sent by Elisa at cathymarcy.com in your email, not the link that came to you when you bought your ticket. So we didn't produce the workshop links until a couple days ago, and so those are in an email that came just a couple, I think it was probably just yesterday. So keep an eye out for that email from Elisa at cathymarcy.com. That's where all the links are for the workshops.
Whew. How do you usually tune the Hartle minstrel? This is a banjo made by Jim Hartle in 2019. That's the 2019 is the new head. My head got busted. So it was a better head than this one, although this is a pretty good head. I tune this usually C. Oh, you're hurting me. Because I usually tune it in modal, actually. I usually, when I'm not playing minstrel stuff, I play in C, F, C, E, G, C, F, G, and then G is the bottom note. That's how I usually tune this. Okay, yeah, let me see if I can find that, No. Oh, that's a whole nother motive that's amazing that we didn't get a chance to. So cool. When you get into it, this is just we're not back from the break yet, but anyway, there's so much cool stuff in this book. It's crazy. It's opened me up so many ways. Also, if you saw the concert last night, the tune that I did as a the beginning tune of, I did a song. I did an opening tune. What the heck did I do? Oh, I did two tunes to begin. One of those. Oh, I never got to. I'm sorry. I'm like very scattered right now. The tune that we started the thing. No, that's not it. I might have to yeah, circus jig. Circus jig. And you notice that the very first tune that I played is called circus jig, and it's not a jig. But a lot of tunes at this time were called something jig, because jig just meant dance. So a lot of the jigs are actually in 2/4. So jig didn't come to mean solely a 6/8 Irish tune until kind of it was way after this period. A lot of things that we think are absolutes are not. For example, the bowron is not an ancient. It's not an ancient instrument. It actually was first a tambourine, and probably came to Ireland in the 1800s. So it's just, these are, that's the only thing that we can say for sure, is that we don't know anything for sure. So I think that's what makes American music amazing. So any particular questions before we go to this tune? 6/8. Okay, you mentioned about using that triplet 6/8 type of rhythm from the circus jig in 4/4. It's just that whole you can overlay depending on where are you putting the emphasis. 2/4 and 6/8. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can still get that feel. You can still get the 6/8 feel. Hopefully I demonstrated that. Okay. I find it very hard to talk about these things. You play several strings in a row with your finger. Can you demonstrate that? Yeah, I can. Before we get to the Joe song, because this is something that took me a while to learn, but I was able to learn it because when I first learned clawhammer, I was told, it was explained to me, that when you hit one string, your finger comes to rest on the next string. Thank you, Cathy. When you hit one string, your finger comes to rest on the next string. And if you work that into your technique from the very beginning, it's a lot easier to do this because all you're doing is you're sweeping your finger down. So you're going. So I'm going. Bum, 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 bum. That's it. But it takes doing. I had to sit with it. Now some people, I won't say cheat, but some people do it by going. See what I'm doing? I'm pulling off with the left hand. But it's actually quite a different sound. So if you do it with the sweep, I think it gives what is intended. And it actually helps you clean up your technique too, because you can't fudge it. If you're going to do that, you can't fudge, resting that finger on the next string. So, and you can actually, get a really cool roll. So, everybody had a nice break. This style of playing without a guitar player because when Joe would play, it was him and his brother, and that was it. Or you would have two banjo players, or you'd have where he came from in the Piedmont, North Carolina, the banjo was the lead, so he would actually wait for the banjo player to pick the tune, and then he would play. So it was kind of opposite to what we kind of consider the fiddle players the leader, and the banjo's kind of and in a lot of old time music, the guitar has taken over the rhythm, and the banjo is now following melodically, and it's beautiful. But there is another style of playing, and it is what I do, which is more of you can hear it's basically like the freight train. It's not doing anything other than what it's doing. But there's something I find very, very I don't know. I like it a lot because it's just you. If it's just you, somebody can dance to you. And then Odell, Joe's cousin, they would add these kind of strokes, and his brother. So we'll talk about all three of those things. So just what you can do with just a regular old bum ditty. How you can put more power in that. So we're going to talk about that for a second. And then also the idea of you hear that? It's like, and when Odell would do that, thank you. When Odell would do that, it would just like lift everything. So yeah, this went fast. Wow. Okay. So we've kind of done questions as we were going. So hopefully that's been okay, because I'd love to get into this tune. So let's just kind of do this here. So if you're just doing the is to just loosen up and really just kind of give it, put it in there. So you have bum, bum. And I'm really hitting it with everything. I'm hitting it with everything I got. And it can be really loud, which when you don't have a microphone or speakers and you're playing in front in a crowded house for people to square dance to, that's what you have to have. So it's a very different kind of style to everything being picked up. But make sense? So that's kind of a tool in the toolkit as well. So you have but I don't even have to do all of that. I can go, Georgia Buck is dead. That's what he said. Don't put no shortening in my bread. Georgia Buck is dead. That's what he said. Don't you put no shortening in my bread. It's called Georgie Buck. Georgie Buck. This song. So let's do that. I think that's a really good thing, and I would love it if you sang. So it's Georgie Buck is dead. Last word he said, don't put no shortening in my bread. And the idea is a Georgie Buck is dead. Last word he said, don't put no shortening in my bread. Georgie Buck is dead. Last word he said, don't put no shortening in my bread. Right? And even just that, and you've got a something that's a little bit different. Somebody said, singing is part of this banjo tradition. And what I realized when I went back to Africa, when I went to the Gambia, and people played the accounting, they never played without singing. They never played without singing. I never saw anybody play without singing. I'm sure maybe they do, but it was clearly such an integral part of the. I can't help but make me think that that's part of where, our singing tunes come from, as opposed to the UK or the British Isles tradition of tunes and songs being a lot more separate. Whereas in America, they're much more, intertwined. I can't help but think that that's, part of the reason why, is the African American co-creation of this. So, I mean, these are all just my summations. I'm not I don't have a PhD, but that I was really struck by that, part, which is so that's got that double thumb thing. But the idea of these kind of like especially when you speed it up, it gives that kind of never-ending up quality to it. So these are all kind of tools that you can mix and match and do all sorts of things. Put them in your toolkit. I think every banjo player is a mixture of all the different styles that they've learned, and I think it's important to try different things, even if you kind of ultimately go, well, it's not really my thing. Maybe something in it will kind of creep in. You know what I mean? Um, and kind of, if I'm kind of looking at all you guys, hi, kind of cycling through. Oh my gosh, look at you. You're beautiful. I hope this has been helpful. Hi, Lucy, I see you. I hope this has been helpful. And, you know, it's kind, I was just kind of like, just thinking about the things that I feel like are really important for, that I think are integral to my style. And that might be something that you can, my best advice for slow down the instrumental break, my best advice for gaining speed. Okay. So it's unfortunately not very interesting, but it's, I kind of find myself parroting it to my son as he's playing piano. You can only play the song at the speed of the hardest part. That's it. So whatever the hard part is, that's how I know how fast some of these minstrel tunes are, is because some of the triplets are impossible at faster speeds. You take that piece and you go, this is the speed that I need to go to get the rest of the song clear. And you do that and be happy with that speed and find the joy in that speed. I think you have to find the joy in playing slow and then slowly speed up. And if you start messing up, back it back down. I mean, it's really, there's no science to it. That's the way you get faster at every instrument. But what I would really recommend is joy in slow. The joy in just feeling the instrument, feeling the tunes, and feeling that I could play this one lick for 30 minutes, right? Let's see, the instrumental break. I'll play that for you. I'm glad this has been helpful. I can see if I can put together maybe a list and I can get it to Cathy and Brad. I didn't think about that ahead of time. I'm so sorry. You can work on minstrel tunes on a gourd banjo. Absolutely. I play quite a few on mine, because the strings will give a similar amount of give to a minstrel style banjo. Let's see. So let me just play through the instrumental part of Georgia Buck. Do I have time to do that? Yeah, we have 5 minutes. Okay, cool. You go, I find all sorts of beauty in the slow that I can then, hint at when I go faster, but some things you're never going to find if you don't play it slow. So yeah, and find the joy in playing simple. I sure have. I came to it older and I just said, I can do what I can do, but I'm going to, dang it, do it as best as I can do it. So find what it is in your playing that is something that you do and develop that and go after that. It's great to copy really great players, and then after a while you kind of have to go, okay, so what is it about my playing? Like I've taught Uma a couple of times, Uma Peters a couple of times. She's has far more facility than I on the instrument already, and I hear her style come out. I teach her song and it already comes out in her style, so she's been playing for a while. So it's like you find yourself in these tunes by kind of taking them apart, slowing them down, enjoying them. Anyway, I'm talking too much now.
Yes, hey, this has been fantastic.
You can be a newbie at any age.
We want to take a second and Brad open up all the mics and just have a moment of appreciation with the craziness of 139 mics open. Let's go.
Yeah, so I can't Open everyone's mic. You have to open it yourself.
Oh,
So
there you
you're
go.
welcome to all do that now if you'd like.
On your mark, get set, go.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Yay!
For patience with me. Appreciate it. I hope you took something away.
Lots. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. All right, go ahead and
Awesome.
mute. I'm going to mute everybody again, except for Brad and Rhiannon and myself, and just give. Rhiannon.
Okay, now I'm the only one
There we
who
go.
can talk. There we go. And then we'll get Cathy and
I'm
Rhiannon back
unmuted
in there.
Okay, we're unmuted now.
Cool.
Cool. Great. All right. So, hey, this has been a fabulous workshop. Look at all these amazing people. Rhiannon, if you do send some resources on to us, and especially if you can do it in the next day or two, Elisa's going to do a follow-up email with everybody. And
That's great too.
so, Banjo Roots.
Oh yeah, the Bob Winans book. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm trying
Yeah.
to have right now. But yeah, I will. Oh, and the other one, guys. If you want to know about history, right? If you just do this one and that one,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one.
they're amazing.
Bill Jameson.
Phil Jameson. Wait a minute. Oh, this one. Okay, so here's the trifecta. Because and if you want minstrelsy, that's a whole nother thing. But if you just want this one,
Sinful Tunes and Spirituals.
okay. So these three, will give you so much. They're amazing.
All right. Well, hey, a great big thank you to Rhiannon for giving us all of this time, all this great information, wonderful banjo playing, the inspiration, and the most important thing, find the joy in slow. If there's one thing I find with new banjo players, everybody's in a hurry to play fast, and it doesn't make it better all the time. In fact, most of the time it doesn't. So thank you so much, everybody. If you have not signed up for other workshops and you've realized that you have fait le grosse erreur, which in Cajun means you made the big mistake, you can go to cathymarcy.com and look under the lessons tab, and you can still sign up for other workshops. And we will have a concert tonight, awesome concert with Paul Brown, who I learned so much from about 38 years ago, and Brad Kolodner's band is going to be in that concert. Laurel Primo, beautiful, beautiful player, and Rachel Eddy, and the fun just kind of keeps on going. So at this point, I think we just
And
have
just
to
like
sign
I,
up.
and
Yeah.
I know that this is probably people probably said this, but big thanks to Cathy and Brad for doing this. It's a heck of a lot of work, and it's been a great way to feel some community during this time where we're so far from each other. So big round of applause and kudos and much love to the two of you. So
Thank you, Rhiannon.
All right,
Thank
hey
you.
Rhiannon, just stick around for 1 minute. Everybody else is going to go away,
And
and
I'll unmute everybody one more time just to say
All right.
thank you, and then you can get out of the meeting so we can
get out of the meeting, or Brad will kick you out. It's very
Yes.
simple.
You can say thanks
Okay.
now if you'd like. Go ahead.
All right.
Thank
you much, Rhiannon.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joy Ireland.
There they go. We'll see you at the next workshop.
Thank you.
Half an hour.
Okay, I'll start kicking people out.
There he goes. I can
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, I'll just
Remove.
start removing people.
We have the power, don't we?
We do. If only you could do that when you're having like a awkward CD table conversation.
yeah.
Again, I call it walk away.
Yeah, well, you have, yeah, not quite that brave sometimes. Cool. Well, that was great, Rhiannon. That was so. There's so many interesting like right hand rhythms that you. There's like so many different right hand rhythms that you use in your playing, and it's so interesting how you just like blend them all together. Because I feel like a lot of clawhammer players kind of have like a go-to right hand pattern, and they just kind of like stick with it all the time. And I love those like the rhythmic variations where you like pause on a note, or it's just like that really interesting. And like you said, doing an off string pull off or something doesn't sound the same as doing like two straight downstrokes or whatever. It's such an interesting sonic.
Yeah,
it's super cool.
It's fascinating. I basically pretty much just cover up what I can't do in the left hand.
Right.
Just in the right hand. But that's okay. That's what I do. You know, and this thing, oh my God. There's so much in here that we have left behind. You know, it's fascinating. So to
me, what you're doing, what Mike Seeger did with Southern Banjo sounds, that big reminder of how homogenized banjo sounds became.
Yeah.
And the idea of bringing back more versatility, you know, which I think is really awesome. All right, I'm going to run and grab a sandwich before the Singing with the Banjo workshop happens.
Yay!
Rhiannon, I've been in touch with your people, so it'll be a good payday on Monday.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I would have done it for free. So.
Oh, what? You should have told us that.
I mean, give me the money.
Yeah. No, it'll be, well, there seems to be a lot of people in your chain, so I don't know how much of it you get to see anyway.
Yeah.
However, you know, I've worked that out with them, so they should have it by Monday or Tuesday. And if you have follow-up stuff, the sooner we get it, the easier it is for Elisa to pass it on to everybody.